Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Finance Commission meeting on Friday, November the 6th. It's now at 4 p.m.
This conference will now be recorded. This conference is no longer being recorded.
That always throws me off.
This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, and welcome to the Finance Commission meeting of November the 6th, 2020. Today is our 4 p.m. meeting. Information on how to access Finance Commission meetings are posted on the town website, and Norwood Community Media is recording this this particular meeting for future broadcast on NCM. Seeing that we have a quorum of Finance Commission meeting members, I'm going to call the meeting to order first with a roll call. So as I call your name, commissioners, just indicate that you are present. Alan Slater.
Here.
Alan Slater is here. Ann Haley.
Here.
Kelly Newmy.
Here.
And the chair, Robert Donnelly's here as well. I want to also welcome everyone else who is online with us this evening. That includes Tom McQuaid, David Hajar, Tony Mizuko, and I see we have somebody, caller number one. I'm not sure who's on the call, if they can indicate who they are.
Tom Maloney.
Hi, Tom. Tom Maloney, welcome
Bob.
to the meeting.
Thank
So
you.
this evening, our agenda is, sure, thank you. Our agenda is relatively brief, hopefully. Let's see. The first action is acceptance of the meetings from October the 14th and 26th. Commissioners, I suspect perhaps the best way to go about this is to first take a motion to approve the meeting of minutes from October the 14th.
So moved.
Alan has made the motion. Do I have a second? Kelly has seconded
Seconded.
it. So roll call on the October 14 meeting minutes. Please indicate yes or no to your approval. Alan Slater.
Yes.
Ann Haley.
Yes.
Kelly Newmy. And the chair votes yes as well. May I have a motion for approval of the meetings of October the 26th?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? I think the only thing I would probably add to it, I think we had some attendees from the school side, and I'll just send, I think it was Maev, Dave, and Teresa, and I think Kathy Carney attended as well. But with those additions, I'll accept a motion. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
And who seconded?
Ann.
Ann. All right. On the motion to accept the meeting minutes from October the 26th, roll call vote. Alan Slater.
Yes.
Ann Haley.
Yes.
Kelly Newmy.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. All right. With that, we can proceed to the next item on our agenda this evening, and that is the articles associated with the upcoming November 12th special town meeting. We have reviewed many of these items in our prior meetings. There has been a change that that requires a revote on our part. I think the best way of going about this is to put the Tom, if you are doing that, great, the revised list of articles and amounts. And Tom, I just didn't have a chance to read through your earlier memo and new chart. So if you and Tony can kind of take us through the changes from our last meeting. These mostly have to do with the funding sources. And then we will, I guess, commissioners, I take it probably we should just go through all these items one by one. I will note that on the school department related ones, we have previously voted on that, but it seems like the ones that we need to pay attention to this evening that have a change in funding source are the applying free cash to the tax rate and the capital outlay for the capital improvement program, the capital outlay for infrastructure. No, actually, the capital outlay for the infrastructure program we have voted on already. So the other change that we need to pay attention to tonight from a vote perspective is the capital outlay for the capital improvement plan. And there is a last item on the third chart. There is capital outlay, various items. These have mostly to do with a change in funding sources. So with that, why don't we start with the item number 1, free cash to offset the tax rate.
Okay, so as people may recall, ordinarily free cash disappears at year end. Because we knew we were going to need free cash because COVID had happened, we purposely changed our strategy from going ahead with capital outlay. We delayed it and we kept our free cash. So at year end, the DLS made an exception just for this year that allows towns to carry over free cash. So we have available carryover of $2,485,849. So we actually need for the meeting, I think it's $2,755,871. So we're short by $258,426. Now, we submitted our free cash application a week ago, not quite a week ago. DLS said, oh, we'll never be able to get that done by town meeting. Of course, we sweet talked them, and she really did a great job, immediately started working on things. But I know none of you have been in the direct process of free cash, but they ask you a million questions after your auditors have already asked you a million questions. So she's still asking, we're still answering. She pretty much today said there's very little likelihood of getting the certified number. So so we are allowed to do the free cash carryover. So I met with Tony, and Tom Maloney happened to come in at the same time. So we discussed that we thought what we would do is reduce one of the appropriations that we made in the annual budget. And one of the ones that we made that was kind of new this year was we added $500,000 to the retirement, kind of as a catch-up, try to get that funded a little quicker. And so we originally appropriated $500,000. So motion 1, if you actually read the motion, reduces that appropriation by $258,426. So that collectively, when you take this free cash plus the free cash that we appropriated at town meeting for the fiscal 2021 budget, we'll hit the exact free cash that we have available, $2,485,849. This information just came in about 2 o'clock today. At the same time, House Budget number 1 was released, and that slightly increased our local aid by 11,000 and change. So I have incorporated those figures into this analysis. So so basically, we're asking, if you look at the actual motion, we are asking that the FinCom vote that the sum of $359,806 be transferred from free cash and used for the purpose of offsetting the fiscal year 2021 tax rate, and that the previous appropriation for excess retirement contributions be reduced by $258,426. I recently, like within the last hour, sent this to our counsel to review because he had already reviewed the previous one. And he suggested that before we actually get it on town meeting floor, we'll cite what article it was previously approved at the annual town meeting. So I will be doing that. But for your purposes, it's that we're taking 359,806 of free cash and reducing that appropriation by 258,426. So that's what we're asking the commission to do.
So basically, the original appropriation that we were looking at last time, free cash of 618,232, we cannot do that because we don't have enough available free cash to do that. So this is the alternate motion, I take it. I think Alan, Ann first, and Alan, I guess. Ann first. I'm sorry, Alan.
That's okay. Okay. So why are we saying that was previously appropriated for for excess retirement contribution? Because that was not supposed to start until December.
Right,
So,
but it was appropriated. We weren't able to spend it until then, but if we don't change the appropriation, we're going to have an unbalanced budget. So we're proposing to reduce the appropriation to this. And then basically, we could contribute the balance. This is about 242,000.
okay. And
one of the ideas possibly, which we'll have time to discuss as a group and as town meeting, is when free cash is certified, which should be within the next week or so, maybe by the time, whenever we have the second town meeting, that might be dissolved and then reappear sometime. We can have a debate at that time whether we want to increase it back to the 500,000 or not. But this way, it's a balanced budget.
Alan, I think you had a question or a comment?
I did. I'm a little bit confused on the numbers because the number we had previously for free cash that we were going to spend in this town meeting was 1,803,000 and some change. But Tom said at year end, we had $2,485,000 and some change. So it seems to me that we have money left in free cash. So I'm a little bit confused that we're down that amount. So we have to make a subsequent change in the appropriation.
All right. So this is that 5-year projection. So you'll recall at the annual town meeting, we used $625,000. All the changes for this will be for town meeting 1 and 2. All the changes we're proposing total $2,485,849, which is the amount we have available. So the amount that's happening at this town meeting, I think I have this down here. Basically, it's $1,791,000. Excuse me. Let me just regather this a little.
Opposed?
Well, I mean, this is the amount of free cash we have. This is the amount of free cash we're doing at the various town meetings.
But we're only doing one town meeting. So
Okay, so 1745, 790, and 60. So I don't know, there might be something wrong with my spreadsheet here, but I basically want to make sure that we don't go over that 2,485,000. So.
What is it? Well, okay, so the line with the, okay, where you've got highlighted right here, 1860849. What is that? That's the money the amount of money we were supposed to be using in this free cash. If you add 258,476, the amount of money that we're taking out of what's the 258,426 coming from?
The retirement.
The retirement. If you add the retirement onto that number, you come up with I lost it. 1,803,000. Is that where we're off?
Just trying to get to the. Yeah, so at this meeting, I think we need 1544, 964. We had 625. We already appropriated. Well, I don't know, maybe, yeah, I guess maybe if you take the meetings in isolation, we could appropriate the whole thing. You know, the previous number, and not reduce the budget of 258. I think I was incorporating both anticipated town meetings, which now the second one is going to be delayed. So if you want to, we could leave the original motion, I guess, as 618,232 from free cash.
So basically, if we do leave the original motion of the 618, we're still not exceeding the carryover amount of 2,485,000 free cash available.
Right. My calculation, I'm taking the 1544,964 and adding, I believe, 625,000 from the original town meeting, which is right there. So those two combined is 2,168,000. And if I add back the 258, find that file again, 426.
And if we are able to do that, that is spend the free cash that was originally submitted of 1.8 million for these articles, we would still you'd still be able to go forward with the pension catch up at 500,000 on or after December the 1st of this year.
That's correct.
Okay.
So with this new information, I guess I would recommend that, you know, we appropriate in Article 1, 618,232 from free cash.
And if we were to do that, there is no need for a vote this evening because that is what we voted on last meeting. if that's my recollection. And
Yes, that is what we voted on for the last meeting. Tom, did we need to use the leftover free cash someplace else before we move on here? Did you need other free cash to balance things here on the spreadsheet?
No, we don't.
That nothing else has changed those numbers when,
Nothing else that would affect the, but I guess, are we sure that we did 618?
we did do 618 at the last meeting.
wait a minute.
We voted at the last meeting for apply free cash to offset the tax rate, a total of $618,232 from free cash.
Okay, so you're right, then. We don't have to vote that one again.
So we've cleared that first one. It's no change from our last vote. If the commissioner, if no one has any more commentary, we can move on to the next item for spending.
Well, 1 second. So Tom, you're gonna have to get another Article 1 motion.
Yeah, yeah, we'll just change that back to what it said before.
Okay.
And I'll send that out Monday.
Very good. The second item, I don't believe we need to take any action on. If people want, I noticed that we did distribute the motion specific to the school department hybrid education funding. There is no change in the dollars in this or the funding for this particular item. We did vote on last meeting to authorize free cash as being the funding source for $746,158 for the purpose of the hybrid education funding and associated benefits and salary costs. And does anybody have any comment of that? Can we just move forward to the outlay?
Yeah.
All right, with that, so the next item will be so here's where we did have some funding source changes. And Tom, if you can just take us through the changes in terms of our new figure for, we have a couple of new figures. One is we have a $439,000 figure, whereas I think last time we were looking at more in the 381 category. And we have a change in the funding amount for borrowing for the capital improvement program.
So this list that's being paid from free cash had a lot of smaller items that previously were going to be borrowed. I don't have a cross-reference of them, but basically there was a bunch of these added. So all the ones that were kind of small are planning. So you can see here there's a pretty big item, $160,000 for design of services, field track, and but that because it's a design service, we feel that we really should be paying that out of free cash rather than borrow something over a number of years. And then I think if you take a big picture substitute, we moved the elevator into borrowing. The elevator for the Civic was moved into a borrowing item, and we moved a bunch of this 160 plus a bunch of the smaller ones over to the free cash number. So it changed the bottom number of the free cash to 439,000. So we are asking the FinCom, to do this motion. So motion number one, that the town appropriate the sum of $439,000 to pay costs of the various fiscal year 2020-21 capital plan. And then these are the projects. So that's what we're asking.
Okay. I'll open it up for discussion from members. Yes, Ann.
Okay. Actually, I have no problem with what we're doing here, and I think it's a good move. I would have liked to have seen a few other things moved into free cash, but since we can't use it, what the heck? So on the motion, the way the motion is written, okay, we look at motion 1 on second page of the motion, and it says the amount set forth for each individual project are necessarily estimates, and the selectmen are authorized to expend more than the amount set forth above for any particular project and less for others, so long as in the judgment of the selectmen, each of such projects can be undertaken and completed within the total amount appropriated by this vote. I don't ever remember seeing that on a motion before. And it certainly
That was
had-
language added,
Huh?
that was,
Let's
that was language added
can
by
we just,
Dawn.
Tom, can we just let Ann finish, please?
Sure, sorry.
Okay, I don't remember seeing it written as such. Maybe I've missed it all these years, but yeah, okay. See if you can explain it, and then I might have another thought.
So we send these motions to bond counsel, so he added that language because what happens is, what's been happening with us is we're a little bit short on something, so we can't do the project. Now we have to go back to town meeting, or we're, we have excess funds that we can't utilize for anything, any other, similar type project without going back to town meeting. So at least in bond counsel's opinion, and I think the Board of Selectmen's opinion, this gives them the flexibility to, get all the projects done in a timely manner.
First of all, I think it would have been nice if we were told that the motions were going to be written like this, because it certainly is very different from the way we have always done business. And I do, in a way, think that coming back to the Finance Commission and to town meeting when things are not particularly figured out early enough as to how much the things are going to cost, and there's the cost overage. I don't like the way this is written, and I think we should probably look at going back to the way we used to do it. I don't know how anybody else feels, but this is fairly small amount of money, but then the next one still has the same thing, and that's $7,485,000. And there could be a lot of things change within that large amount of money.
But at the end of the day, there's not going to be a lot changed on that large group of items. This is when you restrict the appropriation to too strict of a specific line. You're buying a $30,000 vehicle and it comes in at $31,000 and another one comes in at $29,000. It creates we spend more time in staff dollars just playing accounting games to try to fix that. Mm-hmm. I mean, a project that's a $300,000 project that ends up being $600,000, we're shit out of luck. I'm going to have to come back to town meeting anyway. But on the smaller projects, we find ourselves very hamstrung. We're one of the only towns that tends to do it this way, where again, you have a DPW truck that came in $5,000 above a school van or vice versa. And then you're stuck when your motion is too strict.
May I, Bob?
Yes.
All I can think of is the chapel at the cemetery. Wow. If that language had been on there, nobody would have had to come back to town meeting,
If they would have. Well, they would have had to found that money somewhere else. Remember, for the free cash appropriation in particular, that's still a total appropriation of $439,000. So we know the tools are $156,000. If they ended up being $356,000, first of all, we would never do it, but you're limited within that appropriation. The same thing with the borrowing items. I mean, whatever that total amount is, you're limited in, but there's still an obligation to get these projects done and to actually do them. So you need some flexibility within there. And remember, every year we give the school department a $45 million budget with bottom line budget authority.
Yeah. And who likes it? Really?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I think David and then Kelly.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question to understand I think I understand it, but I'm trying to also look at Ann's point. We have a list of projects that adds up to 439,000. So if a couple come in higher, but we want to do it as a town, and that jeopardizes the others on that list, those can't get done until additional funds are authorized at town meeting, correct?
Correct. This is
So my point is that there is sort of a control method, and that is you just can't go spend $600,000 because 5 of those projects went over budget. You'd have to prioritize and then justify that prioritization when you come back and ask for additional funds for other projects that were previously authorized. So we are being held somewhat accountable. So I understand what Ann is saying, but I also understand that I don't want to stop doing projects because the 439 might turn into 459. And so we have to either jeopardize 1 or 2 projects that we do. I'm not sure that that's the best way, but I do understand Ann's point.
Correct. And remember, if we're over on these projects, we still have to go back to town meeting to get another appropriation. So we're still limited within the dollar amount. And you're right, the free cash projects are small. For the borrowing projects, let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say one of those items I think is repair work on the Civic. So let's say that comes in at $2 million instead of $500,000. And the selectmen just decide to say, oh, well, we really like fixing the Civic, let's do it. And then they got to go back to town meeting and say, well, we couldn't do this project. We need an additional $2 million for some other project that we kicked off. I think you're going to get your rear handed to you at town meeting. And I don't think town meeting would settle for stuff like this. It's a matter of, again, having some flexibility within the appropriation for projects where if you have a $500,000 project here and a $500,000 project there, you have $1 million to complete the 2 projects. You can't spend it on something that's not those projects, but you need some flexibility within them. If you exceed that total bottom line, you are going back to town meeting for more money. So if you had a $200,000 project that needed an extra 150 grand, I don't think you're going to come in that short on all of those other projects to have that amount of money available.
I think Kelly, then Alan. Yes, Kelly.
Thanks, Bob. I have 2 things. One, just to piggyback off what Ann and Tony and David are discussing. I do understand both points. I think Tony's point is very valid that, you don't want to have to go back to town meeting with specific line items to nickel and dime $10, $15, something that's insignificant. I think my concern with that was that if we're getting into significant cost overruns, then projects will have to fall off. And town meeting, I believe, should have some sort of determination in what projects those are that fall off. Because right now you're removing the ability for town meeting to say, hey, that's priority or not. I would rather see them listed in the priority that they're going to be done by funding and have town meeting sign off on it that way, saying, we're getting this bank of money. These are the projects we're going to do. If anything goes over, the bottom project on the list is the one that's going to be sacrificed. That would be my only concern with that.
So just what the idea is that these projects have to get completed within that total appropriation. So there's nothing getting cut off. The idea is to move money where you're short on one project and over on another. Not that, hey, everything came in at $7.9 million, so we're cutting things off the list. This is the project list that Capital Outlay has gone through and approved, and what town meeting has approved. Our obligation is to get those projects done, and we have to get them done within that appropriation. Or we go to town meeting and ask for additional funds, but it's not a matter of, hey, this project went over $100,000, so we just start cutting things out. Our obligation is to get those done. It's, hey, this project went over $100,000, but this one was under $100,000, so we can still get it done. But the obligation, the directive of the legislative intent is these projects must be completed. I would certainly never go and just say, oh, well, this project went over 300 grand, just take it from somewhere else, and then we'll go back to town meeting and say, well, we didn't buy the vehicles, but we really need them now. I think, again, you'd have your rear handed to you by town meeting for doing that. The legislative obligation is these projects have to get done. It's just when you think of a vehicle, this one's 60, this one's 40. Crap, the bids came in at 50 and 50. We can't do anything, or you're scrambling in a small operating budget to move it around. Well, no, we can still get both vehicles. We still have to get it. Something comes in more than a handful of percentage over that total borrowing, you're not going to be able to shave that much from other projects because all you're shaving is, hey, this one came in under. It's not to not get projects done. we have an obligation to get what's done on the list.
Okay, so by committing to it, you commit to completing the projects. And if there's a significant overage that can't be corrected by offsets in the project, you would go back to town meeting anyway to complete them.
Absolutely. We've got to go get that money to do them.
Okay. Then I'm cool. Then that's okay. I think the broader question I have is, was someone from FinCom in the motions meeting? So that this could actually be reviewed in advance, so we don't have questions about how things are written during this meeting.
Yeah, so the motions meeting will be this coming Tuesday. It's usually right before town meeting. And again,
Okay.
the actual language is for borrowing and capital motions is always prepared by bond counsel generally.
So if you look at my screen, Ann said, how come we didn't know about this change in language? Well, you can see that that's when I got it, November 5th, yesterday. So we're not trying to hide anything. I want to point that out. This is when the bond counsel suggests the language.
Can I hear from Alan, please?
Thanks, Bob. As I understand it, we're still meeting for 4 p.m. on the day of town meeting, I believe.
We have put forward an agenda and a notice for 4 p.m. on the 12th, yes.
Because, you know,
I'd have to check whether that might have, I don't know whether my staff canceled that because you said you were going to meet today. So I can't guarantee.
Okay. If it was canceled, we can always put it back on. We have time.
Oh, you're right. Thanks.
Right, because what I would suggest is I'd like to think about this language a little bit. You know, I haven't seen this before. I mean, I understand the pros and cons. You know, there are some projects, you know, some of the more substantial projects, you know, the sewer relining, the culvert work, which could run into a significant amount of money and potentially could be overages. So what I would like to suggest is at this meeting, we simply vote on the dollar amount of those projects, $439,000, and we do the same thing with the borrowing projects. And then, you know, we generally have not voted on motions prior to town meeting, you know, as a FinCom. We generally vote on, you know, on the amounts and whatever. And, you know, at the 4 o'clock meeting, you know, we can have a final FinCom opinion one way or the other, whether we'd like to go with this language or the other language. So what this does, at least it gets us approving the dollar amount, but the motion, which is not as, maybe isn't as critical, you know, can be voted on, you know, right prior to town meeting after we have a little bit of time to think about this and maybe have some more discussion, because this hit us cold. And, you know, I've never seen, all my years in the FinCom and done a lot of projects, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. I would request that I realize it just came from bond counsel yesterday, but I would suggest that in order for us to get a better understanding of the language, if that language or that email from bond counsel could be distributed to the FinCom, so we have full awareness of the rationale behind it. I understand it makes sort of a sense to me, but it seems like it's a significant enough change that I think the FinCom should have an opportunity to take it under consideration. I'm glad to hear that.
Bond counsel, you know, sent us the motions with the language. There's not going to be any rationale attached to the email.
I would like to see the email in any event, and I will just say that the Finance Commission should see the email and from bond counsel. It is our responsibility as a Finance Commission to recommend to town meeting not only the amounts of monies that are being appropriated, suggested for appropriation, but the funding source. And I just think that the more information we have up front, the better it will be for us to perform our own duties as elected FinCom members. So again, I understand the rationale, but I think it's a significant enough change for us to review and meet. Yes, Alan.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, maybe bond counsel, you know, since this has been stated, as a way of doing it in other communities. Maybe bond counsel can send us some examples, of this language being used in other communities. I mean, we don't necessarily need the name of the community, the name of the project or whatever, but, I'm just curious, where this has been done before, because again, I've never seen anything like this in all my years in the FinCom, and I'd like a little bit more information before I feel comfortable with this.
With Alan's suggestion from his earlier comments, agreed. We are not voting on the specifics of the motion this evening. I guess my question would be at this time to the Finance Commission, are we comfortable enough to vote to consider a vote on the appropriation of $439,000 from free cash for the these various items of that have been shifted to the free cash line as per the documents that have been submitted to us?
So moved.
Very well. Do I have a second on Alan's? Kelly, you are seconding it? Great.
Yes, sir.
So on the motion to approve the $439,000 in free cash for capital outlay, various items as listed on the documents presented to FinCom, mostly the design services contracts that we have been looking at for some time. I will now take a roll call. Please indicate your vote, yay or nay, yes or no. Alan Slater?
Yes.
Ann Haley?
Yes.
Callie Numi?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Very well. The other item for discussion this evening is a change in the capital outlay capital improvement program. I think last time we've shifted here too. I think last time we were looking at, we voted on a borrowing cost of $7,543,000. This number this evening, with the switching of the design services contracts to free cash and putting of the civic elevator into the borrowing item, we now have a new cost of $7,485,000. Are there any questions on this particular item and funding source from the commissioners? Alan.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I mean, the same comment on the amount versus the motion. I think if we take a vote, it should just be on the amount. Leave the language of the motion open for us to the vote on prior to town meeting, the day of town meeting.
We're voting on the amounts, not the motion, the language, correct?
Yes, that's my suggestion.
And aren't we also voting on the changed grouping? I mean, the items within that $7 million, how much? Yeah, the articles that are the items that are listed there. So it's the items that are listed on these pages for the $7,485,000. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Those are the items. So
if you want a motion, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay. Ann has made a motion for approval of the $7,485,000 for capital improvement plan. Funding source is borrowing. With that motion, do I have a second? Alan seconds. Very well. All right. I will go to a roll call vote now. Alan Slater?
Yes.
Ann Haley?
Yes.
Kelly Numi?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. So that motion proceeds. That vote proceeds 4-0. Bless you. just, if I may, I neglected to mention this. I think Ann made reference to it earlier. What do we have left for votes this evening? I think we've already made the votes specific to the road repair and the water improvement program, so I don't believe we need to re-vote on that. If you don't mind, Ann, you made a comment on the earlier article about moving the design services into free cash, those contracts, those small amounts, which is, I think, a position that generally the FinCom likes to proceed with normal times. But I think given this year, we were cognizant of the fact that we did want to preserve as much free cash as we could at special town meeting for dealing with these financial situations that we are now encountering in this very strange pandemic year. So design services, those small items going to free cash, certainly is consistent with the philosophy of the FinCom from my discussions with members. There still remains, and I'm not suggesting we revisit the votes on the borrowing items, but there still remains a number of similarly small borrowings for vehicles. And I just would like to comment or open up the discussion in terms of, as we get to more normal times financially and otherwise, whether we can put more, whether we can put more thought towards a practice of using free cash as the primary source for some of those vehicle purchases that are rolling stock in nature. I don't know. I think I've had some conversations with commissioners regarding that. I don't know if anyone wants to also just chime in with their opinions on how rolling stock should be dealt with under the best of circumstances. I see Ann has her hand up.
Under the best of circumstances, the rolling stock should be put into the operating budget and utilized under the operating budget. This was an argument that we've had many times throughout the years at town meeting, and it is a part of your operating budget. It's there. It's always there. It will never go away. So I fully agree that we shouldn't be borrowing for it. If it is a good year, or we can turn this mess around. But if we have to, we have to. But I fully believe operating budget. Thank you.
Any other general comments? Alan, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Whether we put it in the operating budget or whether we put it in the capital budget, I think that these operating stock items, your $40,000, $50,000 vehicle, the types that all departments need, on a regular basis. I think those should be funded as much as possible out of free cash. The thing I've always been concerned about is you're going to accumulate too much debt. And when you accumulate too much debt, a dollar in debt is a dollar less for town government or for the school side. And I know our policies, the new policies that we voted on about a year or so ago, put more of that type of purchase towards free cash rather than capital. I understand this is a difficult year. It's a pandemic year. Things have to be a little bit different, but I think in the future, we should make sure that, everything being equal, that those types of projects be funded out of free cash and not be part of capital and borrowing.
Yes. Okay.
Can I just say here, I don't think there's ever been a disagreement about we would want as many vehicles in the operating budget as possible and that we wouldn't want to borrow for smaller vehicles. This is all consistent with the plan that everyone adopted last year. If we had a few more weeks at town meeting, I would absolutely say, sure, let's pay more in cash than borrowing. That's what we've been moving towards. This was all part of the FinCom's approved plan that the selectmen also approved and town meeting went along with of, this is what we wanted to do until we were at least through COVID or through the FY22 budget.
Yeah, Tony, I think we get that. I think we understand that. I think what we're just wanting to do is just we do realize that we're in unique times, and we're consistent with the approaches that the general government has taken towards these issues. I just think we just want to make sure that we as finance commissioners be cognizant of the fact that we do approve that. We are consistent with that strategy, but there will be a time and a place where we will be in more normal times, and we want to just make sure that that we as commissioners keep that in mind as we go forward with our future planning. So it's more of a something for us to be cognizant of once we are through the more difficult phases of the current economic and public health situation that we're in. Are there any other comments? If not, are there any other? I think, Tom, I think we have provided you with all the votes necessary to proceed with finalizing the pink sheet, so to speak, for town meeting. I see, David, you have your hand up. Yes.
Yes, Ms. Gammon, just a question on the spreadsheet that Tom sent out on the second version. It's got the 258,426 under the other column, which implied to me that it was funding was coming from somewhere else or it was a separate vote. But based on the discussion, that amount is actually in the capital outlay CIP number of 7485. Can someone just say yes or no?
I think the 258,246 was the money from the reduced appropriation for the pension catch-up. Do I have that right, Tom?
Right here where it says on my cursor, also reduces excess retirement contribution.
Okay.
But
Isn't
the spreadsheet, after I revise it based on your vote, will say 618,232 in the column
Okay,
and
Great.
0 in this column.
yep, thank you. Sorry to confuse.
No problem. No problem. I think we have completed all of our business for this evening. We will, Tom, if you could just check with staff to find out if the 4 p.m. meeting on November the 12th is still in play. If not, if we can just post that meeting. It seems that will be a remote meeting prior to the beginning of the town meeting on the 12th.
I will check.
Yep. And I know there's a motions meeting next week, and I will be in attendance as well. So the two takeaways are, let's post the meeting for November the 12th. I think the commissioners would like to see the bond council's email and any input that the town council, bond council has from examples of similar approaches, language, and so forth in their planning and their motions and so forth. That would be helpful for us going forward before town meeting on the 12th.
I did forward that email to everyone.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other items for business this evening for discussion? Seeing none, we will. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Ann has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kelly has seconded. Roll call vote for adjournment. Alan Slater,
Yes.
Ann Haley,
Yes.
Kelly Newmy.
Yes.
The chair votes yes as well. And I want to thank everybody for coming to a 4 o'clock meeting on a Friday afternoon. I know that's not the best timing. So to the commissioners and to all the folks on board, town staff, David, Tom, thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.